Whatever. You know how it goes. Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I'm Scott, and you are in the prom corner. Yes, indeed, kiddies. Can you believe it? It's Sunday live prog stream number 43. Oh, yeah, this is going to be a good one today. Got an all-star panel assembled, and we're going to be talking about breaking down, analyzing the 10 best King Crimson songs according to us, because, of course, our opinions are the only ones that matter. Well, we're the only 5 people on the screen, so yeah, our opinions do matter. But anyway, we have assembled, like I said, what a motley crew we've got here. We've got Wayne all the way from Alberta. What's going on, Wayne?
Woo! Nothing much. Just listening to a whole bunch of albums lately. Really getting into Mott the Hoople or Hopple or however you pronounce it. I've heard it pronounced different ways, and T-Rex as well.
Wow.
Oh, T-Rex.
Wow.
I love
a very specific area you're getting into there. Scott, what do you think about T-Rex?
That's kind of outside most of my expertise. I love what I've heard, but I'm not as in depth with T-Rex as I probably should be. There's a lot of, now that I'm coming out of a writing mode of about 3 years worth, I'm starting to rediscover and discover for the first time things. And honestly, T-Rex is on that list.
T-Rex is awesome, man. It seemed like every single boy, every single dude my sister dated was a big fan. So that's growing up, I knew all about them. What about you, Pontis? Was T-Rex a thing in Sweden, or was that just like a UK?
Yeah, but they were huge in Europe. They were huge in Europe. I mean, they toured here. Of course they were huge, but I was nearly not born when they were, but it's summer music. It's very sort of, it's really sort of that glam rock sort of thing.
I like that summer music, and we're dead set in the middle of summer. Cody, what would you call King Crimson then if T-Rex is summer music? What season is King Crimson?
Oh gosh. Well, it's the totally opposite end of the spectrum, really. It's you can play certain songs of King Crimson, like certain songs like Heartbeat could be considered summer songs, I guess. But I'm a huge T-Rex fan too. I think Electric Warrior is just a fantastic record. The same as the Slider. I love the Slider. Both produced by Tony Visconti. I'm a slide. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I don't know how we got off on a T-Rex tangent. Thanks a lot, Wayne. Really appreciate it. But I just want to open it up today with just a couple of things that your boy needs to get off his chest. I'm really sending my good mojo, my good juju, all my positive energy and love today is going out to the one and only Nathan from Nathan on Shuffle. Nathan, we love you. We support you. And dude, you got a great channel, and anybody watching that has not already subscribed to Nathan on Shuffle, do so. And I was just perusing Prog Magazine episode 150. Coincidentally enough, that's the topic of today's conversation. And I go on to page 26, and who do I see? Oh, it's our boy. Oh, it's our boy Charlie. Look at him. Look at Charlie.
That's awesome.
Look at Charlie. Awesome. Oh, yeah.
Got my way.
The one, the only Charlie Bramall. From Age of Distraction and Ghost of the Machine and Nova Cascade and et cetera. And just a great guy. And I was so happy to see that. And how coincidental, Charlie's been on our show. Would have been cool if we had him on today, but that's all right. Today we are doing the top 10 King Crimson songs. And I get a feeling that a lot of these songs we're going to be seeing in top 10s are going to be coming from the first 7 albums. But I instituted for myself a 1 per album rule so that I could not do that. Man, there's a whole bunch of good songs being left off as a result. But, that way I can get a little deeper into the catalog. And that's how I'm doing it. But however you guys want to do it. And we're starting with Wayne. He's going to give us his top 10. He's going to blow our minds with some obscure picks. And, non-LP stuff and live-only bootleg tracks and improv. You know how Wayne does.
And there's a ton of that.
It looks like Tara might want in.
Oh, hey, if Tara wants in, if she, hey, part of 5 is that you have this like empty space, right? There's that black space.
Bring her on.
And nobody
It's
gets
divided in 3 parts.
All right, let me put a link down there for Tara in case she wants to come on up. I'm sorry, Wayne. I'm stepping all over you again.
It's all good. So for my list, I did pretty much institute a 1 per album rule, just kind of spread it out a little bit. Because otherwise, like you said, it would be pretty much that first run of King Crimson from 69 to 74. So for number 10 for me, was actually already mentioned from the album Beat, Heartbeat.
Awesome
I
song.
really like that Adrian Belew kind of poppy influence on King Crimson. And that strumming at the beginning, I just love that sound. It had a really nice sound to it. It sounded great.
The chorus effects is very nice.
Number 9 for me, Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream from Thrack. That is a killer song. It's really interesting going to listening back to King Crimson, and especially through this period, is actually how much I actually really enjoyed a lot of this era of their band, where it's kind of past the 80s, 70s, it's in the rearview mirror, but it's kind of they're feeling like they're trying to tread new ground.
Yeah.
Just kind of fill out their sound and everything, and sounds great. Number 8 is The Great Deceiver from Starless and Bible Black.
Nice.
Love that song. Really, really close to choosing Fracture, but there's just something about The Great Deceiver. I can put it on anytime, listen to it, and just become immersed into it. Number 7 from Lark's Tongue and Aspic, Book of Saturday.
Yeah.
Just a great kind of simple, straightforward King Crimson song. Feels very much like it'd be a single from the album, where I think that's one thing about King Crimson that gets often overlooked is the fact that they could not only write like these extremely complex songs, but when it came down to it, they could write absolutely beautiful melodies and really good pop songs. Like that's something in the early run I wish they maybe would have experimented more with, a little bit more popular songs, but is what it is. Number 6 is from the album In the Wake of Poseidon, Cadence and Cascade.
Oh yeah.
Great.
That is such a beautiful song.
It is.
The only song sung by Gordon Haskell. I always loved his voice with King Crimson, especially in those kind of lower, kind of melodic songs. Like I think he really fit the band well for what they were doing.
And it works because I mean, he's singing on one track, so it leads into Lizard, right? And then you got some of that weird horn stuff in the Wake Up Poseidon. So it does function as kind of a transitionary album between the debut and Lizard, and that's a big reason why is Dude Man singing that one track, and that's awesome. And I almost put that on my list.
Number 5 from oh man, there's so many great songs on here to choose from. From Three of a Perfect Pair, Lark's Tongue and Aspic Part 3.
Ooh.
Nice one.
I love that. Love that song. Just beautiful It's kind of a weird album where the first half is a lot of the poppy stuff, and then the second half is kind of them going back to being more experimental. And I feel it works here.
Yeah,
I think Fripp said that one side was accessible and one was it was difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, the side 2 is where you get all that
Yeah.
all that stuff, right? That Fripp loved to do.
Accessible was what he said. It was accessible.
Yeah. Song number 4 on my list, Lizard.
Yeah.
Just
The
absolutely love that
thing.
song. One of the first, I believe, sidelong epics ever put on record. Just the beautifulness of it, and very interesting. Like, the first time I heard it, I had actually no idea John Anderson was on it until I was listening to it, and I'm like, that sounds like John Anderson. So went looked in the credits, and I'm like, oh yeah, it is John Anderson. But the music,
I didn't know either. When I bought Lizard, I got it on a cassette, and there were no credits on it at all, and I had no idea. I'm like, hey, that's awesome.
yeah, and the music is engaging to it. I find, like, listening to it. I know there's people that I know Fripp for years hated it, but listening to it, I'm like, this is actually really good. Like, it's engaging for a 20-minute song, I believe it is, to keep you for that long and to be interesting at the same time.
Fripp changed his mind. He said for years and years and years, even he didn't understand Lizard, and he changed. He came around to it. He was dead wrong, but like the genius he is, he realized Lizard is awesome.
I believe Steven Wilson is very fond of that record.
Yeah,
probably.
Number 3 from the album Red, Starless.
Ooh.
Like, I remember hearing this song and being like, wow. There's 2 songs in their discography where it's like can almost bring you to absolute tears. And Starless is one of them. Just an absolutely beautiful, well-written song. And
yeah,
with Bruford on drums and Wetton, I've always loved that era of King Crimson because there is that 3 really interesting musicians, but then you get like David Cross, Jamie Muir in there as well. And the sound to this record, it just sounds great, but Fripp with that Mellotron really turns it up to 11 at times. And
yeah, it does.
Mm.
Wayne, have you ever heard the Neil Morris and Mike Portnoy cover of that song?
No, I haven't.
It's amazing.
I'll go check it out.
You'll love it.
Song number 2, another one that could almost bring you to tears from the debut in the Court of the Crimson King, Epitaph.
Oh, yeah.
Just an absolutely beautiful song. I've come around on parts of this. There's parts to the debut I don't like where I'm like, it's just, I not quite a fan of the whole thing, but I think everyone can agree Epitaph is like one of the best songs they ever written.
I particularly like what Greg did integrating that song into Tarkus on a live album.
Friends, yeah.
That really hammers home. You're absolutely right. It really hammers home what a wonderful, beautiful song that is when it's played just guitar and that beautiful vocal. I mean, that's the acid test really of a great song. Can you deliver it with just a voice and one instrument? And yes, Epitaph, absolutely.
Mr. Davis is right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, we got
it happens from time to time.
Gallery, by the way. I just want to give a shout out to the one and only Prague Hat. You were so good last week on the channel. We'll definitely have you back.
I would like to point out that he purchased a Myth of Logic CD last week, and I very much appreciate that.
There you
support.
go.
Thank
we
you,
love you, Edward.
And now for number 1, I think this is one of the most beautiful songs they ever written. I know a lot of people don't like this album from them, but Islands, for me, when you talk about comfort songs, this is a song I can just put on, close my eyes, and you feel as if you're on an island.
Mm.
Just listening to it in the waves. The use of Fripp's guitar with Mel Collins on sax, who really I love that era of King Crimson, the Lizard Islands, where they're still trying to figure stuff out, but even in like some of these chaotic albums, that there's this beautiful, beautiful atmosphere being created. And
yeah, just like Jason Budney 76 says in this comment here, those are some difficult records, right? Those in between from the debut to the Wettin era, kind of difficult, kind of challenging. They had a lot of personnel issues, which of course don't happen in a vacuum. You don't have complete lineup changes for no reason. You have lineup changes because you're having some issues inside the band. And that can actually create some really interesting music. And that's Lizard, that's Islands, absolutely.
Oh yeah, and just a couple honorable mentions. Ladies of the Road from Islands, great song. Eyes Wide Open and Dangerous Curves, and also Fracture from Starless and Bible Black.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is a band where I think you could have 100 lists and probably have 100 different combinations.
Yeah. Ask me tomorrow. Mine will be different.
Yeah.
So it's like that pretty much.
Yeah.
Hey, who's going next?
Whoever you want.
Pontis, you said you had some things going on. Do you want to go next?
It's okay. It's okay. That had been fixed, so it's okay.
Oh, okay.
I can go. I can do it.
It's your show, Scott. You do it.
Let's do it, Pontis.
All right, I'll do it.
I got you on my mind.
Yeah, it's my story with King Crimson. Is that I was a fan of Jess, and I was a fan of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and all the time this band kept coming up. I couldn't find records with them really, but the name always came up. Like Bill Bruford had been in King Crimson, John Wetton had been in King Crimson when I listened to Asia, for instance, or UK or anything. So around about 89, I bought 3 albums. I bought, in Wake of Persuading, I bought Poseidon. I bought Lark's Tongues and Aspic, and I bought Red. And got them home, put them on, and didn't understand a shit. I didn't understand a thing about what was going on. Because I wasn't used to 12-tone music. I wasn't used to disharmony, and I was all those bands, Jethro Tull and ELP and Genesis, they all are very, very uplifting music. They don't deal with the dark side, really. They do it in spades. They do it in times, at times, like Close to the Edge from the Beginning or anything like that. It's difficult music, but it's different here because it's so dense and it's so dark and it's so I wasn't used to that, so that took me 6 months to go through those records. At least the one that got me was actually got me into it was the gateway, so to speak, was the Red song Red, because I figured out that was a blues turned inside out. And then when you started to think about how it worked and gradually, I mean, one other gateway was the Great Deceiver box set when it came out in 92.
Oh, yeah.
That was the live stuff. That was a hell of a live band, and so this is a difficult band to get into. And if you can go for the first album, but then you have the improv side, and you have the the dark things going, and then you have a beautiful melody, and then so things change, and they really were changing. I mean, this is a band that starts off as a sort of a moody blues, jazz, hard rock thing, and ends up in 2003 as an electronic band with one member, ever present. That is Robert Fripp,
The ever-present.
the ever-present Fripp, who has this knack of developing himself and going different routes and going different ways to get to certain things and getting very organized. So for me, this band is the true progressive band in the sense that it always changed. It's a chameleon of a band, right? It also has this sort of Janus-faced persona that you can have with a lot of bands like, the Creams, the Grateful Dead, Hendrix to a certain point, John Coltrane. There's a difference between the studio band and the live act, in that the live material is where the real good stuff happens. It always changes, it always grows, it always develops in the live setting. So when I decided to do my list, I said, I do one per album. Yeah, that was a good idea. Then I started, I have to have live it, this song is better live. All right, I'll pick a live song in here. So I decided to make it a bit more. I made a weird list. And I couldn't stop at 10, so I have 15. But I go with it. At number 15, it's Electric from the, I think it's from the Power to Believe album, but this is from the Live in Japan Electric set that was released in 2003. It's a live set, and it's very much that electronica math rock thing that they was doing. They were listening to a Tech Red, they were listening to Square Pusher, they were listening to all sorts of things, and they were really incorporating that. Next on my list, One Time, one of those beautiful songs that from Frack that Adrian Belew wrote, and he definitely helped out with that sort of thing, that making more accessible side of things. He's a huge Beatles fan. He knows how to write a good song, and this is one of them. It's a beautiful, and it's in 5, I guess, right? Or is it 7? No, 5. so it is a beautiful song, but it's quirky. From the Construction of Light album, I choose the title track. Sort of a tour de force of them trying to be something else again, being this finding electronic drums, finding MIDI things, and you have Adrian Belew singing canon with himself, which is just fantastic. So then I went back to In the Wake of Poseidon. I always say that wrong. And it's the title track there. It's said to be the equivalent to Epitaph on that record. That record is very much mirrored the first one, but I must say that is a beautiful, fantastic song in itself. Greg Lake is fantastic singing these ballads.
Yeah.
He had voice. We talked about vocalists before, earlier, and he's one of them. He's truly one of those people who could really just had a natural voice for these things. I mean, he and Peter Sinfield's lyrics, he sang those lyrics very, very well, and the whole. This is a studio band now, so you have half the original Crimson, and you have Mel Collins in here, and you have all sorts of people, and from the British jazz scene, really. So this is a beautiful, beautiful song. From the 80s. The 80s took some time for me because I did the thing. I stopped at 1974. Then this happened that they released The Young Person's Guide to King Crimson live in 1999. And then I had to have it because it had some 70s and 60s stuff that I hadn't had. And then I got into the 80s stuff through the live record. So I go with Nevrotica from Beat.
Oh yeah.
That is them going nuts. That is them. And that album is, of course, about the Beat Poets and Karak and all that scene. So it almost feels like, I think that Karak said you have to write what comes into your mind and really express yourself. And that's exactly what that song is. That is speed writing in a sense. It just flows. It's just enormously chaotic, and that's just fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah,
me too.
So here's an interesting one. The Starless and Bible Black album was half recorded live, then they added stuff. So I choose Fracture from the Starless and Bible Black album.
Yeah.
This is a song. This is a piece of music. This is not a song. This is a piece of music, and it's so intricate. I haven't played guitar. I've never played guitar, but I must say that it must be hell playing this because it's really sort of, you have to be really focused doing this, and it goes from very, very quiet to enormously loud in 11 minutes.
Have you seen the guy on the internet, Scott? He practiced for 20 years to learn how to play Fracture. And I guess he has the whole thing documented, him trying to learn how to play Fracture. And even Robert Fripp, I guess, seen it. And
I can only imagine what Robert said.
But I guess the point is even after 20 years of trying to play, and Fripp chimed in, he's like, it's only 12 notes per minute or 12 notes per second. I don't know what's the problem here, no way, I could never play that.
Right.
Failure to Fracture, I think.
Yeah.
There you go.
What it was called.
It's just an enormous. Just imagine they pulled it off live, and they pulled it off every night, and they really, that band with Wetton and Bruford and Cross and Fripp just were enormously fantastic. I mean, my next song is Lark's Tongue and Aspic Part 2.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's proto Metallica, right? It's really da 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 Stravinsky all over it, right? The Rites of Spring, taken into a very heavy sort of context. But I choose the live version because I think it was looser. I choose the Great Deceiver live version that opens. I think it's from the preference set. It's the first CD. It is very, very, you can feel the energy. You can feel the, fear of flying, going, that is really, I mean, Elvin Jones said that he died every time for John Coltrane when he went on stage. And I think that is exactly what these guys are doing. They are really getting it out there and really ripping it off.
Nice.
Just to see where they land.
Good analogy.
So let's go for a pop hit then. Sleepless from the Jello album, or Free the Perfect Pair. This is really, this is them doing funk. This is them doing the disco thing. There's even, there were even 12-inch versions of this. They hope for hits, and it's very much like Adrian Belew and And Tony Levin, of course, is a king here. He plays the bass line, so it's just fantastic. If you ever want proof for Tony Levin's expertise, just listen to this. It's just fantastic. One thing I really enjoy with King Crimson is the improvs, and I choose one, and that is Ashbury Park.
Oh yeah,
from the USA.
Yeah,
because just think about that. That is the jazz aspect of this band. You know, you have jazz elements throughout the career, and one of them is to go out there, out of the thin air, grab something and do something with that. There's plenty of improvs. I mean, the 69 improvs perhaps weren't the best, but by 1974 they really can do it on a fly, and they do it regularly, and they kept doing it. So by 2000s they also incorporated the electronica stuff, but look, this is them grooving along and really finding dark elements. They're really exploring here. They it's funky as anything else that was around 1974. It's just fantastic. And from improvisation to a half improvised, half composed thing, Sailor's Tale. I mean, Sailor's Tale is one of the best guitar instrumentals there is. Mill Collins sax is on here. You've got the fantastic rhythm by Ian Wallace, and Boss Burrell is doing his bass stuff, and it's just they're just ripping it up. It's just that bass line, that sort of guitar, that nasty guitar solo in the end. It just amazes me all the time. And of course, I also choose Lizard. Lizard is a very interesting thing, because we almost end up in New Orleans on this one, in the bolero section, and we're starting in sort of rural sort of landscape with John Anderson singing the first part, and then we go into other things, and it's so well composed, and it's then goes into this dark sort of dum, 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 dum. And it's interesting that Fripp doesn't solo until the very end of it. He's present, but he's not taking the lead. The lead is on the soft machine guys that are working with him. The Elton Deans and the Mike Sherrick and all those people. I think the cross-pollination is very interesting. You have John Anderson here. You have the soft machine guys, the guys from Neoclis. Then he moves on to Van de Graaff Generator. It's cross-pollination all over. My number 3 is Indiscipline. Bill Bruford and Adrian Belew together doing a fantastic, this is a talking, shall we call it a talking blues or anything like that? He's just, it's him doing spoken poetry over.
That's hilarious.
That's hilarious.
That was actually recorded without his knowledge.
Really?
Yes, I got the story here. If you want me, I'll talk about it later. I'll talk about it later. But yeah, that was not written or rehearsed.
Well, you're up next, Scott. So regale us with that story, because I definitely want to hear it.
I choose the Absent Lovers version of this because it's longer. It has more percussion on it, and it's wilder. He's teasing the audience just to see if I looked at it and to see if I liked it. I repeat myself when I'm under stress, so I repeat myself under stress. He's really doing it live. So, Indiscipline in number 3. I went back to Easy Money is number 2.
Oh wow!
Oh, nice one.
And I think this is a piece that really No, that's number 3. Sorry. I didn't see number 1.
Okay.
Number 3, and Easy Money is one of those pieces that, you know, developed live into something else from the studio version. So I choose it from the Nightwatch CD, which is the basic recordings for Starless and Bible Black album. Here's a, you know, and they really play with the dynamics, because Fripp goes, you know, from something like, you know, everybody's listening to each other. You can really hear them listening to each other while they're playing. And suddenly Fripp just went, wow, wow, and the solo breaks out and just fantastic. And Wetton is just fantastic vocalist as well. You know, what a great voice. You know, whatever material
Mount
he
Rushmore,
did,
baby.
yeah, he's on there.
Yeah.
I mean, both Lake and
They are.
and Wetton should be on there. Yeah. So back to the first album, The Court of the Crimson King, the piece that ends the album. It's just everything that you think of progressive rock is. It is that sort of ethereal feeling of it. You have, you know, that record has a lot of, you feel that you're inside the music. You feel like there's pictures you can, you know, if there were videos for this, if there was someone who made film, you know, it's film music for your mind, really. You can, because Pete Sinful is very good at painting those lyrics, and the band is good at delivering it, and Ian MacDonald is good at arranging that album. I think that is very much down to him. All those little sounds, the accordion things, the in the middle, it goes to complete silence with Michael Giles doing brushes on the cymbal, just because you had to start all over again, and it's just fantastic. It's just dramatic to a halt, right? And number 1 for me will always be number 1. This actually is a piece of music I want to be played at my funeral whenever that happens. It's going to be hell for the, you know, it's going to be hard for the organ player, I know, but you have to work. And that is Starless. I mean, Starless is, what a fantastic song. I mean, it's a piece. It starts off, it's almost like trilogy with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but it's more integrated in a sense. It's a ballad tune that goes to a total different universe in the middle. It ends as a full-on racket, organized to the point where you actually, you know, all that dee, you know, it's just one note. You just place one note, but it's so emotional that, you know, Fripp does this little solo that he says, and it really builds up. Do 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 do, and then you have that explosion in the end. That is fantastic, and of course, you have Ian MacDonald's back on saxophone. Mel Collins is on that album. It's very much you know, looking back in '74, what we did in '69. Even the album is constructed in such a way that you have an improvisation on side 2 and an epic at the end. And it's just, I love that music. It's just fantastic. So King Crimson is one of my favorite bands. I've seen them more than I've seen any other band. And if someone had told me that in '89, when I didn't understand the music at all, that I would go and see them 10 to 12 times, I would have laughed it off. But they are just fantastic in the sense that they always develop. So that's my take on it.
There you
That's
go.
awesome that you got to see them that many times, because they don't tour a lot.
Yeah, but
Very well done.
I went, I saw them 2 times in 2003. Then I really hammered on with when the reunion happened in 2014 and onwards, because they toured Scandinavia a lot. So I went, different gigs, different, I saw them many, 2 nights a row, 3 nights a row, just to be there, right?
Committed.
That's awesome.
That three drummer lineup though really was something to behold, right? I mean,
yeah.
Wow.
And they were sometimes they were 4, I mean, it's just fantastic how that music is. I mean, if you look at it, it's very sort of. I don't know how you say that. It's very much it's not a classical approach, but it's more like a very serious conservatory approach, that you go in and listen to a string quartet. So you go into you're very concentrated when you listen, right?
Yes. This one was recorded. I just want to take a minute here to say that this was actually recorded at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre in Toronto.
Oh, was it?
Wow.
It was.
Oh, I didn't know.
Sadly, I was not at the show. I wouldn't see them for another 4 years after that. But the Queen Elizabeth Theatre is where I'm going to see Opeth this October.
That's going to be awesome. That's going to be awesome. Pontis, an amazing job. Thank you so much. I knew you'd contribute. You did amazing job. But I want to hear what an American has to say about this most quintessentially British band, right? I mean, you think of King Crimson, you think of the beginning of the whole prog movement. Nothing's more British than that. So what do you and I have to say about King Crimson, and why do our opinions matter? Well, of course, the Americans' opinions matter, because we are always the biggest market, and that means we have the biggest wallets, and he who has the biggest wallet wins. Scott Davis. That means your opinion matters more than Wayne's or Cody.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Well, my wallet doesn't feel any bigger than anyone else's, that's for sure. A few thoughts about my King Crimson journey. It started in the mid to late 80s. I came to King Crimson with Discipline. That's where my entrance into that world was. And as happens so many times for me in my listening habits, I expand outward from there, and journeyed back in time and kept up as they developed from there. Out of the big 6 of the prog band, I love King Crimson. Let me state that unequivocally right from the front. But they're probably my least favorite of the so-called big 6 bands. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with my other listening habits. I appreciate their wanton disrespect for structure. I do, because that's how they arrive at such powerful, wonderful, fascinating music. But I have to admit, every time, Red is my favorite album by them, always will be, even though that wasn't my first album from them, which is not typical for me. I always skip Providence. I always skip it. It holds no interest for me whatsoever. I've heard it once, and I don't know if it was intended to, since it was an improvisation. I would, if I could talk to Fripp, I would ask him, have you intended these improv pieces to be listened to and analyzed over and over again? Or did you do them for people to listen to them once and go on? I don't know. That's a question I would have. But having said all that, a breathtaking catalog. I would compare them to Rush in one way, in that both bands were completely different feels and completely different bands at several points. They reinvented themselves completely. The band who recorded Discipline has no bearing on the band that recorded Crimson King.
Is it easier or harder to do with all new members? Or is it easier to do like Rush, where it's the same 3
guys,
when you change the whole lineup?
I would argue that given the relationship of those 3 men in Rush, it was probably easier for them because it was natural. They were just doing what came naturally to them. Whereas with King Crimson, you had a unified vision under Mr. Fripp primarily. And, that may or may, that's a good question, Scott. I don't know. Anyway, I am grateful to King Crimson, because without King Crimson, there's no Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer is my favorite band, as you all know.
Yep.
Let's see here. Well, let's just dive into it. I do have a few thoughts about a number of these albums as we go, including what we were talking about earlier. At number 10, Indiscipline, from the album Discipline, released October 1st, 1981. Let's see here. Where's my notes on that? Let's see. It's Thala Ginjit that has that speech, isn't it? From Baloo, where he's talking about this is a
that was the one that was recorded without his
knowledge. I said it wrong. Yeah,
okay, that makes
it said Baloo was walking around Notting Hill Gate with a tape recorder looking for lyrical inspiration, and was harassed first by a gang that took and played the tape, and then by police who searched the tape recorder for drugs. On returning to the studio, he gave his bandmates a distraught account of what had just happened to him, and Fripp covertly signaled to the engineer to record Baloo, and this recording is featured on the Discipline version of this track. Couple other thoughts about Discipline. It was their first album following a 7-year hiatus. Only Fripp and Bruford remained from the previous incarnation. The back cover features the statement, "Discipline is never an end in itself, only a means to an end." The original front cover features a variation on a copyrighted Celtic knot design by George Bain, and it was later found to be used without proper licensing.
How do you like the sheer irony, right?
Yeah.
Sheer irony with Robert Fripp and his Gestapo-like control over intellectual property, that the knot they used on Discipline was protected, and he had to change it on reissues.
I'm just regurgitating the facts. I'm not going to offer commentary, but you are absolutely correct.
That's awesome.
It was replaced on later releases by a knotwork designed by Steve Ball on commission by Fripp. That same design is also the logo of Fripp's record label, Discipline Global Mobile. In Discipline, what can you say about it? That was my first King Crimson album. We were all enthralled by it, that whole album. It was so different and so unlike anything that I had ever been exposed to. It was expansive, and it was aggressive, and it was beautiful, and just Adrian Belew is such an underrated vocalist. Everyone talks about his guitar abilities, and those are considerable. His talent as a singer, and by the way, that talent has not diminished. I saw him with his solo band a few years back, and he did frame by frame with a 3-piece and just absolutely killed it. So that was fun. Excuse me one second.
He's awesome. Love Adrian Belew. My God.
Number 9, In the Court of the Crimson King, from In the Court of the Crimson King, released October 10th, 1969. Is this album the beginning of progressive rock? Well, what I will say most decidedly is that if you have not viewed Scott's earlier episode talking about 25 records that predate this particular period that can absolutely be said to have led up to prog, you should go and look at that episode. It's extremely informative. I guarantee you will discover some new music. And that was an excellent piece, Scott, and very much plays into this. Yeah. However, I do think there are 2 periods in the history of progressive music. There's before this record and there's after it. So it really is a marking point. It's not the beginning, but it's certainly a very important signpost. Greg Lake, what else do you have to say? That voice, that just incredible voice. The playing in particular, something that's not really mentioned a whole bunch, is not necessarily how good the drumming is on this album, and it is, but how tight the entire band is. You know, these days you can do it with AI in 5 minutes. Anyone with an app can create music that tight. In those days, it had to be played by 5 musicians who were absolutely positively on the same page. Very, very stunning. Anyway,
anybody who's on the fence about Michael Giles as a drummer,
don't be.
Maybe you should listen to Bill Bruford when he saw them play, and he's like, dude, we need to practice because he was way better than Bruford in 1969, and it wasn't close.
Michael Giles was.
Bruford was like the high school junior on the basketball team that goes away for summer break, and he gained 6 inches over summer break, right? That was Bill Bruford, like between Time and Word and the Yes album. So
yeah,
what just happened here? Michael Giles was just incredible and completely underrated.
All right. So you're absolutely right. And
more
by
on
the
that
way,
later.
do go find Scott's video. What is that video called, Scott? I don't remember the title of it.
The Origins of Prague.
Yep, go check if you're watching this program and you've not seen that, go and check it out. It's very informative. I learned a bunch from watching it. Go find it. Anyway, number 8, from the album The Power to Believe, which I feel is their single most underrated album in their career. It's rarely talked about for some reason. The song Happy with What You Have to Be Happy With.
Yeah.
Again, it's a reflection of its time in a lot of ways. There's some industrial, that one. There's some industrial music about it, but it's got clever wordplay. It's got King Crimsonisms that would have been in play on the first album or anything from any period, but it was uniquely that period as well. I think that's one of the hallmarks of King Crimson is that not only did they manage to reinvent themselves as an aggregation, they managed to incorporate similarities amongst all those different eras in an astonishing fashion to me. So that's number 8. Number 7, I didn't get the memo on one per album, so I completely ignored it.
Do whatever you want, man. It's your nickel.
Well, yeah, the majority of my King Crimson likes are what I would call signposts, not necessarily the deep tracks, but 21st Century Schizoid Man from Court of the Crimson King. It's such an omnipresent track, almost to the point of being overplayed, but you put it on and you go, oh yeah, I remember why I loved this so much. And it's that album. It's one of the few albums I will almost always say that a well-engineered record will sound better on vinyl. In the Court of the Crimson King sounds better on CD for me, mainly because the dynamic range of that record is so wide that vinyl just cannot contain it. And a well-mastered version of that, and there are several that are very well mastered, I think it's superior, at least to my own viewpoints. More often, I prefer the sound of vinyl in a general sense, but for this album, I had an original pressing of the vinyl, and I got a lot of money for it when I got rid of it because I listened to the CD much more often. That might be heresy, I don't know, but in the case of that, 21st Century Schizoid Man, what an astounding piece of music! Distorted vocals, and it's so angry, and it has so many aggressive, intricate sections that are, you hear the jazz influence and you hear the classical influence. Obviously, Crimson has always flirted with, the Stravinsky and other things. I hear a lot of Wagner in what they do in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
They're just, they're so forceful and bombastic and, very angular in a lot of ways. And Schizoid Man is I think a great example of that. At number 6 from the album Discipline, Frame by Frame, I fell head over heels in love with King Crimson the moment I heard this song. It's so, to this day, a complete breath of fresh air. The intricate guitar parts and Baloo's voice just sailing over the top of it. And the absolutely underrated and under-discussed maestro, master of his instrument, Tony Levin, choosing exactly the right notes for that piece at exactly the right places. That is a masterclass in listening in a precise environment, is what Tony Levin does all the time, but on Frame by Frame in particular, because he knows when to mix it up and he knows when to just play this beautifully sculpted bass tone on the roots of the chords in the chorus. And it's a master class.
And it's a master class and how Baloo and Fripp, their guitars, like they're like playing two different time signatures.
Yes, they are.
Like,
Yeah.
how do
And
you
then they
do that?
change. Then they
And then they do it
exchange.
live. How do they
Yeah.
do?
I don't know. The guy
good.
talked about learning fracture. I have tried for many years to learn frame by frame, and I have friends who can play it. I mean, obviously, you have to have the right equipment properly set up to do it right. But anyway,
I think just to give some clarity as to what happens there, I think after the third bar of the two guitars repeating the same line, one of them adds a beat.
yes.
Mhm.
Well,
That's
and
right.
there's a point at it too. I think I once heard somebody who had analyzed it say that they actually exchanged time signatures at one point.
Yeah, at one point I think there's a handshake. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
they
add that beat.
Yeah.
So at
they've
one
added
point,
the beat, and then they'd switch the
yeah,
signatures
one's
that
in
they're playing.
13 time while the other's in 14 time, and then they
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, so
It's
and
crazy.
that beautiful melody on top of it.
yeah.
Frame by frame.
So if you're not
Dead
even paying
by
attention,
drum.
you just think it's a beautiful track.
Oh,
And
it's
then you start listening,
yeah.
it's like, what? And
Yeah,
that's insane.
yeah, and Bruford's drumming, just astonishing as always. Okay, number 5, also from the album Discipline, Mate Kudasai, which means
Mm.
please wait in Japanese.
She was
Another example of a King Crimson song, as Pontis alluded to earlier. So many King Crimson songs are so much better when they've played them live. The Absent Lovers versions of most of these songs just they sparkle more. They're warmer. They're just more of everything. The studio versions are awesome, but it's clear to me that these 4 guys viewed those studio versions as blueprints, as a roadmap that they then took out live and would expand upon and let them grow, let them breathe, get out of the way. That's another signal of great mastery and great musicianship, is getting out of the way of the material. Let the material speak. Don't enforce your ego on it so hard that it squashes what you're trying to accomplish, or it discourages other musicians who are playing. So anyway, number 5, Mate Kudasai. Number 4, from In the Court of the Crimson King, I Talk to the Wind.
Oh, yeah.
Another fantastic vocal from Lake. It's just it's evocative of its time, the late 60s. You know, it has a bit of that sort of era, that late 60s era to it, but it was, you know, after the Summer of Love and all of that. So there's a little bit of disillusionment about it. A great synth-filled lyric, wonderfully recorded. That one of the astonishing things about In the Court of the Crimson King is what a great recording it was, how well engineered and recorded, and how the precision of the balance of each of the instruments. I would love for somebody to write a book in depth about the actual process of producing and recording that album, what gear was used, miking techniques, you know, how that was accomplished, because it's astonishing. It really is, how clean and clear that whole album sounds rather. Number 3, from the album Lark's Tongues in Aspic, Lark's Tongues in Aspic Part 2. Probably, I would say, for my own taste, maybe the defining track in all of their catalog, because it just, I mean, although there's no vocals to it, it's so, I when I put this on my list, I had trouble coming up with words for it, because it's so just astonishingly cool in surprising ways. It's one of those songs you can listen to 100 times and walk away with a different impression every time. That's not easy to do. That whole album is astonishing, but this one track really stands out for me. Number 2, from Red, released October 1st, 1974, Starless.
Oh yeah.
Again.
You know, what can I say that hasn't already been said? Starless has an interesting history in that it was supposed to be on the album Starless and Bible Black. Wetton had the tune ready, but Bruford and Fripp were not that excited about it, and the other sections of that song apparently had not really been developed yet. then apparently as they were wont to do in those days, they started to mess around with it live a bit, and saw the value in it. So that's number 2, Starless from Red. And at number 1, also from Red, the song Red.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No one can walk away from that song on first hearing and say, "Oh, I completely understand that." It's proto metal at its best. It hints at so many different styles and careers of other musicians that were yet to come. Such a forward-thinking album. Another really great recording. Another instrumental. You know, it with several of the best vocalists that have ever walked the earth. King Crimson really exceeded expectations by being an exceptionally good instrumental band. I love Wetton's playing, always have. Love his sound. I do my best to emulate it. Yeah. So anyway,
one thing is also that you almost can't count the drumming because he's a bit behind.
Yeah.
But then he catches up. It's one of those things. You go, how does he do it? How does he do it?
Yep.
You know, because it's hard counting that.
Yep.
Even if you try, you know.
Yeah. A couple, 2 honorable mentions: Exiles and Heartbeat.
Yeah.
I love the song Heartbeat. Heartbeat is disappointing in the studio version, but you hear the live version, and you go, "Oh boy, there it is!" Because the song is so wonderful. Anyway, those are the last of my thoughts on that. A couple things about Red. The band broke up 2 weeks prior to its release.
Yeah.
And the song Starless is played over the opening titles of the 2018 horror film Mandy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Starring Nicolas Cage, right?
Yes.
And
we got to see that.
And Lars Tungsten Aspect 2, Part 2 was used without Robert Fripp's permission in the Skinamax movies, Emmanuel, back in the late 80s, early 90s, starring Sylvia Crystal. I remember one night I'm sitting at home after work and I turn on Cinemax and you know, all of a sudden there's Lars Tungsten Aspect Part 2. And if you try to rent that movie or watch it nowadays, it's been scrubbed absolutely clean of any Robert Fripp owned.
That's ironic, isn't it?
I've seen it with the Lars Tungsten Aspect.
Right? It's a little weird, man. It's a little
You sort of what?
Huh? Yeah, it's like Fripp approved this. I don't.
I think he speaks about that in the Great Deceiver book. That at the point he got a few quid out of it, and the Emmanuel money. You know, he's also said, you know, if they had asked me to write something for that, you know, perhaps I could have done it.
Yeah. But it wouldn't have been as good as that. I mean, few things in this universe are as good as that. So I can certainly understand why they wanted to steal that song. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cody, I'm wondering, did you follow the one per album rule, or are you going to be all over the map? What are you doing?
I did not follow the 1 per album rule, but I kept it pretty well varied at the same time.
All right.
King Crimson are one of my favorite.
Man. Go for it.
King Crimson are one of my favorite bands. My dad, who is actually in the comments here, he used to play me In Discipline when I was a kid. He'd be like, listen to this, and throw that on for me. So that's why I can adjust to music like this and just go, oh, I totally get what's going on here, because that was how I grew up. He had this CD. It was the compact King Crimson, and it had 21st Century Schizoid Man. It had 21st Century Schizoid Man, but it also had the Beat era King Crimson stuff on it. And so I've got that CD now. It's great. It's a great compilation. But yeah, I want to go through a couple of props here first before I get too much into the list.
I'm gonna make you big, Cody.
Okay. All right. I don't have a prop for every single song, but I just want to show off a couple of these box sets because they're pretty sweet. This is King Crimson Indeed live in Toronto in 2015. 9 years ago. Wow. I didn't see them until 2019, so 5 years ago. Same lineup though, and it was absolutely fantastic. So there's that. There's been times where this has been my favorite King Crimson album. The first time I ever heard this, I went, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how brilliant this thing is. But Lars Smith and Aspic, it's a fantastic album. And it just got remixed once again by Steven Wilson in Dolby Atmos surround, and it sounds absolutely fantastic.
We got another birthday. Amy had birthdays going on. Edward's got his daughter's got a birthday lunch. Happy birthday to the Prague Hat's daughter.
Yeah, man. Everybody's kids have birthdays today, except for my parents. So this is the Lark's Tongue box set with all the cool live and rehearsal stuff. Pretty sweet. The Great Deceiver, Pontis was mentioning this when he was talking about his list. This is the cool 4 CD set.
Amazing.
This is the essential King Crimson. This is kind of like a career retrospective from 69 to 84. So this came out in the early 90s, around the same time that Yes did that big box set too, which I also have. It's great.
And it kind of looks like Yes years, doesn't it?
Yeah,
A little.
It does actually. The Starless set.
Yeah. Oh.
This has got the Steven Wilson surround sound mixes and live stuff. This has got 27 discs in it. This thing, it's absolutely insane. I don't know. That is insane. I would like to get the one on the Road to Red. The only Red King Crimson box that I have is this one.
There you go.
Wow.
That's off the road.
Still have to get that one.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And so to go into my list now, I just wanted to show those because those are fun pieces. Got my list saved here. If my phone would unlock, that'd be great. So I got a couple of honorable mentions I'm going to go through first. We got The Great Deceiver. I love that track. Great track. One More Red Nightmare. Again, if I could have put the whole Red album, I could have. I definitely would have done that, but I wanted to keep some variety in the top 10. So One More Red Nightmare, Red. Also, just, Bill Bruford hitting that crazy China symbol in that in the beginning. Oh, so good. I Talk to the Wind, beautiful. It's the way it contrasts 21st Century Schizoid Man on the album, where you get this heavy, blistering, monstrous track, and then that fizzles out with that insane ending, and then it comes in with the flutes. And one thing about I Talk to the Wind is I was watching this show on Netflix called Baby Reindeer, and there's it's a new show. It's a pretty creepy show, actually. I could just for those who haven't seen it, I won't go into the details of it. It's pretty nuts. But if you listen closely during one, I think maybe it's the second or third part, there's somebody covering that song in the background.
Wow.
You only pick it out if you're a musical nut like any one of us on the panel here today.
Yeah, I haven't watched Baby Reindeer yet.
You'll probably like it, and especially now knowing that. I can't remember what part. I think it's in the third part. But there's a couple of girls singing "I Talk to the Wind," and it's like, wow, okay, I did not expect that. But, okay. Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream, great track. You get that double drummer thing going on between Pat Mastelotto and Bill Bruford. And if you have the 5.1 surround sound mix, which I do have,
which you just maybe have,
that's it, right?
It sounds pretty awesome. And Dinosaur, that was one of the songs that my dad used to play for me all the time growing up. I'm a dinosaur. Great song. And Walking on Air, one of those, each of the Adrian Belew albums has at least one of these sort of ballad-esque tunes, and you're going to see some of those in the top 10. So that's the honorable mentions. Okay. And that's how good King Crimson's catalog is, if those are the honorable mentions. Number 10 is the title track to In the Court of the Crimson King. It is just fantastic. 9.5 minutes, and about halfway through, when you think it's over, they come back with really quiet flutes, and they come back in just to surprise you once more. That album is still a big seller. We sell it left, right, and center at my store, Second Chance Records, in Caledonia, Ontario, Canada here.
Give them the address too, man. Plug it all the way.
Yep.
All right. 20 Argyle Street North, Caledonia, Ontario, Canada. Second Chance Records. You know what it is, man. Check it out. Thanks, Scott. Thank you. Funny thing, I have a weird synchronicity type story about that song. About 6 years ago, I had someone in looking for that album. And as they were in the store looking for the record, I was searching for it. I got a text from a friend of mine who was just getting into proper good music at the time. And she texted me saying, have you ever heard this song "In the Court of the Crimson King" by King Crimson before? She's like, I just heard it on the cable radio, because you know some of the cable boxes here have like classic rock stations and stuff, and it was playing that. And she texted me that as I was looking for the record for someone. I'm like, man, you must not know me that well, because of course I know that song, but it is so good. That was the first King Crimson record I ever bought with my own money, and it is a life-changing record. Moonchild, you know, it's great for about the first 5 minutes until it's just about nothing for about.
I love it. I love it. I love that improv.
I love the song part. The song part is really nice, but it just, I don't know, but it picks back up within the Court of the Crimson King, so that's okay. That's okay. And again, the Steven Wilson surround sound mix of that album is bloody chilling. It is so good. I just can't. That whole record is just a masterpiece. It is fantastic. And in the Court of the Crimson King, yeah, you really get to see the genius of Michael Giles on that. I'm going to spread out a little bit and just talk about Michael Giles here for a bit, because he is, you know, it's kind of like you hear his drumming on that record and you kind of wish that you could hear more of him. And whether it's, you know, at least with Bill Bruford, you got lots of King Crimson, you got him with UK, you got him with the Bruford Project, you got him with Yes. But with Michael Giles, you know, you got Giles and Fripp and such in those first two King Crimson records, but you don't have a lot of music to sort of dig into with him. And so in the Court of the Crimson King, I guess that makes it all the more special, because you hear the genius of the playing that is throughout that entire record, and that super jazzy approach, right? That super jazzy approach that he brings to this heavier music. And yeah, it's just brilliant.
You can go to a album by Anthony Phillips called Sides. That's him.
Is he on that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's my homework for today. Thank you, Pontis.
Yeah. Go and check that out.
You know, with this wall the way it is behind me, you'd think I would be aware of more Anthony Phillips music, but
there's still more. There's always more. There will. You never.
It's one of those things where just
music never ends.
I know, and it's this continuing cycle of beauty, and there's no end in sight. It just keeps going, and once you think that you've been all around the map, well, guess what? There's a whole other country to check out.
Yeah.
Number 9 for me is Fallen Angel from the Red album. Again, you know, this is not a ranking. This is just songs that I think are so amazing. Any one of these could be number 1, really, but Fallen Angel, that magic of the chemistry of that lineup of the band is just, I believe it's just the 3 guys plus some additional personnel, but it's credited as the 3 guys with just the 3 dudes on the cover. John Wetton, Bill Bruford, Robert Fripp, obviously. It is just fantastic. What can I say? It's one of the beautiful. It's beautifully haunting, that track. It has this darkness to it, but it's gorgeous at the same time. There's a lot of beauty in darkness, especially with King Crimson. Fallen Angel, amazing track. And we're going to the Adrian Belew period now. We're going to go to the Discipline album, and we're going to hear from a song that I think Scott mentioned this. Scott Davis mentioned this already. Is Mate Kudasai. She waits in the air. Beautiful. And there's odd chord changes in that too. And it's kind of like this sort of it's this contrast piece to everything else that's on the record, because there's a lot of really insane stuff on that album, which is why it's one of my favorite albums, bar none. But it's kind of like this break in between the insanity before the insanity eventually picks up again. And that's one of the things that helps the flow, is it doesn't break up the flow of the album. It's really a nice cohesive listen all the way through. It's really great. And that song is just a fantastic piece. You get there, and as soon as you hear that echoing guitar coming in, it's like, oh yeah. I'm getting chills talking about it, man. And it's so good. And there's not a whole lot going on, you know. I mean, there's a lot of subtlety to that with Adrian Belew's, with that track on that album. and it's just wonderful. And so moving forward to another sort of ballady type thing. I mean, this was probably the first time where they were, I hate to say this, but maybe they were trying to write a hit. I don't know. But my number 7 pick is indeed one song that I love very much. It is Heartbeat from the Beat album. I don't know how this was not a hit.
Yeah,
maybe because
I agree.
I think because when you get to this level of prog, right, you hear a song like this and go, why wasn't this a hit? But someone who's not into prog might be able to pick out the fact that, well, there's a lot of chord changes in this, but there's and there's not, like, I don't even think there's any time changes in it. Scott, is that?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, there's a different feel between the choruses and verses that kind of make it non-slow danceable. It's kind of a slow dancing sort of a song, but the two feels are different enough that if you were trying to slow dance with somebody, it would break it up. And that's really the hallmark of what that might be as a hit record. But what a beautiful song. Yeah.
I know. And it does have a lot of really intricate chord changes in it. And I love things like that. I love sitting there and just picking out, oh, listen to that modulation. Listen how it comes from this to this. It's just fantastic. But I feel like this could have been a big hit. Honestly, I do. And I'm cheesed off that it wasn't, but that's okay because we're still lucky enough to have the song. So
yeah, trust me, Geffen was not rolling out the red carpet. The mighty KC was not getting the A-list budget for promotion out of Geffen in 1982.
Although Bill has a great quote that he told somebody one time. I can't remember where I read it. He said, King Crimson's the only band where you can play in 13/8 and stay in anywhere near a moderately nice hotel.
That's true. And you know what? Geffen has a pretty bad history with treating their artists the way they do. I mean, look at what he did when he was working with the label that the Eagles were on in the 70s. And then David Geffen went on to
Asylum.
Thank you. The Eagles sued them and won. And then Henley went solo and signed with Geffen. And then Geffen sued him back later on. It's a bunch of BS. But Heartbeat is my number 7. And great song. Number 6 is one of the heaviest King Crimson tracks. And this was at a time when grunge and nu metal and all that was happening. And I recently found out that Robert Fripp's actually a Korn fan. And so it kind of makes sense. But happy with what you have to be happy with.
Yep.
I love that song. Again, that was one of those that came out when I was just a young kid. My dad was playing it all the time. He was just like totally into it. And as a result, I became into it too. It's one of my favorite Crimson songs, obviously. It absolutely makes the top 10. That comes on in my car and the mirrors start to shake. And that has a lot of, I'm still trying to figure it out, man. I'm still trying to figure out all the time changes in that. Happy with what you have to be happy with, you have to be happy with. And the way Pat Mastelotto is changing up the grooves throughout that. Come on, man.
It's you want to hear the real mind blower? It's actually in 4/4. It's how they're breaking up the bars of 4/4.
I believe that is true.
That makes sense.
They're breaking it up. Each instrument and the vocalist who's got the worst job with that song, they're all playing different variations on that.
Well, you're right about
it. Seriously, listen to it with that in mind, and you'll get it.
I'm gonna do that after this stream. I'm gonna put that on, and I believe that makes sense. It's just where the emphasis is on the.
Right, the phraseology goes across multiple bars.
You can count 4/4 through the whole thing. You can sit there and count like a metronome through the whole thing, 4/4, and it comes out right. But everybody's emphasizing different parts of that. It's fun.
That's cool.
Like I said, I think Scott just gave me the answer, man. Thank you so much, because I've been trying to figure that one out for a long time. But it's that's a fun track.
Yeah,
and obviously, the vocalist does have the hardest part there because he left the band right after. So next up is probably the song that introduced most people to King Crimson. Many metal bands have covered this. Ozzy Osbourne's covered it. 21st Century Schizoid Man. That is an absolute. My dad's got a funny story about this. I know he's in the peanut gallery watching here. that came out when he was 18. Okay, my dad is 73 next month, but he's 73 going on 25. Okay, he's cool. And so that's, he said he was living with his grandmother at the time when that came out, and he puts the record on the turntable, and it's that really quiet noise at the beginning of the album. We all know what it is. But at the time it was brand new, so he cranks it up on the big hi-fi system because he's like, I can't hear it. And he says his grandmother was in a rocking chair out of the corner of his eye, and she was knitting, and all of a sudden, he says, no joke, okay, he says, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the knitting go flying up in the air. and his grandmother was like, lost her glasses and everything. She was like, oh dear. And it just, that song is one of those that I love to get behind the kit and start playing. I should do a drum cover of that. It is a lot of fun to play. Yeah. Of course, there's a lot of subtleties. It's kind of like, well, with all the King Crimson music, there's so many subtleties that you really have to nail.
No, that'd be a good one for you.
Yeah.
You can't
Cody, I tell you, if I had a time machine, I would have loved to be 18 in 1969.
Yeah. He saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, so
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I love sitting behind the drum kit playing 21st Century Schizoid Man and just getting all that. I should totally think about doing that as a drum cover. I mean,
good one.
It's, some of the craziest stuff. I mean, I go for the throat with this prog stuff, man. And I make sure that I've got it down, and it's just, I like to challenge myself as a player. That's what it's all about. And King Crimson absolutely does that for me.
Yeah.
Bill Bruford is one of my top guys ever. And so is Michael Giles, right? Especially with the first King Crimson record, and just the way he's just going at it, and all these fills. He kind of does these things where it's like falling down the stairs, but it doesn't fall out of time. You know what I mean? He does it a lot in the title track on that album, in the Court of the Crimson King. It's like he's falling down the stairs, but never fails to come right back on the one, and it just works so perfectly. It's like that really jazz sort of thing that he does, right? Yeah. That's all part of it.
If you listen to the Epitaph box set, which is the 1969 stuff, you even hear him doing it live and being very much at the center of the band.
Yeah,
he's leading the band from behind the kit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that Bill Bruford definitely got from him too, because if you listen to some of those fills in the Court of the Crimson King, the song, and then listen to South Side of the Sky, listen to the way he comes into that. It's like
he almost falls over the kit.
Exactly, but it's on purpose, and it comes. It's fantastic. It is so good. I'm freaking out. Okay, so 21st Century Schizoid Man, Michael Giles out the yin yang, and Robert Fripp pretty much inventing heavy metal with that riff. Greg Lake coming in with that distorted vocal. Y'all have got it covered. Moving forward. I love that track, but moving forward, Waiting Man from the Beat record. This is a song that I hadn't heard in a long time, and I came back to it about earlier this year and listened to it, and I've been addicted to it ever since. I can't stop listening to it. It is absolutely fantastic. Some of the bass lines that Tony Levin plays against the rhythm, against like Bill Bruford, and what Bill Bruford and Tony are playing against the guitar riff. I think they're doing that thing where Robert's playing in 5 and Bill comes in on 4. Like it's insane. Okay. It's insane, but it's almost like a ballady track again, even though obviously it's not due to all those crazy changes. But it's quickly become one of my favorite King Crimson tracks. And next up is a song that has been mentioned here a few times. My number 3 is a song that indeed has been covered by Neil Morse and Mike Portnoy and Randy George on the Cover to Cover album, Starless. I'm driving along listening to their cover of it, and I'm like, I can't, I know these guys are great musicians, but they went for the throat. Again, just to take that thing again. Once again, these guys went for the throat, okay? Portnoy, George, and Morse. Talk about taking something that is of the highest degree in a catalog. and nailing it. You know, making it your own and nailing it and not missing a beat. Pun intended, I suppose. But yeah, of all the King Crimson songs that they could have chose, they went for like that one, like one of the most craziest pieces of music, and they just nail it. Oh, my gosh. So Starless, yeah. And the original, obviously, on the Red record is just fantastic. If you listen to Prog Radio, actually, about a week or two ago, Tara played that on her show on Wednesday afternoon. And I got a show over there Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern. But she played it, and I was just reminded about how much I love it. Bill Bruford is an absolutely incredible genius. Later on, I love that part in 9 near the end of the track. If you're playing in 9, I probably love it. But number 2, one of the tracks that absolutely blew my mind upon first hearing this ever. I remember the day I listened to this album for the first time in full, and I've never been the same since, honest to God. Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 2. Amazing. And it's 7.5 minutes of pure perfection, instrumental perfection, and it goes through peaks and valleys. It goes through these beautiful calm moments to these right heavy in your face, distorted, insane moments. Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 2 and number one. Okay. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Scott Lade, you and I are very much built from the same cloth, my friend. I think that about all of us on the panel here, honestly, because look at how this great music connects people. You know what I mean? And it's just, honestly, I love all of you guys on the panel. You're all great.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Number 1 is one of the first Crimson songs, like I said at the beginning of this explanation. I don't know. And it's still one of my favorites to this day is Indiscipline from the Discipline record. I think that is absolutely fantastic. You know how long it took me to realize that they're just playing a shuffle?
Yeah.
and this is something that Mike Portnoy has really obviously has taken as inspiration from Bill Bruford, is how to play so many different rhythms on top of the same riff. And the riff doesn't change, but the rhythms do. And he can make it a shuffle. He can make it a thrash song if he wants to. Bill Bruford literally, I think he took that riff, boom, bum, 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 that crazy Robert Fripp stuff, and I think that Bill Bruford managed to find every other way to play a rhythm over that in just 4 minutes. It is absolutely astonishing. And as a young musician, growing up as a drummer, that is one of those things that it just manifests and you never forget it. And then this insanity builds up and then it stops. And then I do remember one thing. It's Adrian Belew reading this letter from his wife. And it's almost psychotic in the best, most complimentary possible way.
Again, another song that really came alive when they performed it. Almost every live version of that song is better. I think
it is pretty incredible live, and they extend it out sometimes too, right? Especially with the current lineup, with the 3 drummers going at it. But Adrian Belew just sounding like a really calm, like, I do remember one thing, and then I looked at
playing little games,
playing
little games.
He is an absolutely. I think he's incredible, and I'm actually going to meet him in October, so that's pretty fun.
Oh, I hate you.
It'd be awesome, mate. Jeff, there's not going to be any time for my list. Jeff, fear not. I've got 90 seconds.
I'm sorry, Scott. I'm sorry, man.
I put time restriction on myself. We could always go long.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Let's go long.
I'm sorry,
man. Go long. That doesn't happen. We've got we've got a format here, and we like to keep it nice, tight. And it's a little bit better. The algorithm likes a little, shorter live stream, or so the theory goes. But, none of these songs I've got on my list. Oh, no, there is one. I've got maybe 2. I've got 2 on my list that you guys haven't talked about. But anyway, again, at number 10, we're doing Lark's Tongues and Aspic number 3. Yeah, why not? It's a good one. At number 9, here's one I don't think anybody had on their list. We mentioned a lot of stuff off of Islands, but not Formentera Lady. I love Sailor's Tale, but I'm going with Formentera Lady. I love that track. Islands took a long time for me to get into. I hated it, but I was wrong. I was dead wrong at number 8, Neurotica. The live version sold me. I never liked Beat at all, to be honest with you. Seen them live, and it changed everything for me. At number 7, I'm going with Indiscipline. I think just about everybody had it on their list. At number 6, I'm going with The Devil's Triangle because it's the only song on In the Wake of Poseidon that doesn't sound like something that came off of In the Court of the Crimson King. It pointed to a weird direction they could have gone if they would have, stayed doing that. At number 5, The Lizard Suite. Nobody's mentioned Keith Tibbets this entire stream. He was so critical to that weird time. Never a full-fledged member of the band. Should have been. Number 4, Epitaph. Does it get any better than that? Greg's voice. Come on, man. Really? Number 3, Fracture. Yeah, just perfection. Number 2, I'm going with Lark's Tongues and Aspect Parts 1 and 2. Why not? I'm going to combine them because I love them both so much. And I have a 1 per album rule. So this way I can turn it. And at number 1, of course, it's Starless. And that's the top 10 King Crimson tracks. Oh, yeah. I think we nailed it, boys and girls. An excellent stream. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us. You're not going to be with us next week when we break down the top 10 prog metal albums of all time. Oh, Cody, you'll be here for that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And God, I think maybe you'll be on. Maybe we'll talk. I think you're going to be on that one.
I would love to do it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And Pontis, thank you so much. I've got you next up for the following show, which will be July 14th, where we're going to do the top 10 Electric Light Orchestra songs. ELO will be in our crosshairs. I've never really talked that much about them on the channel, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And
that's going to be
July
very interesting.
21st, we're going to have the great Brent Bristow from Emerald City Council back on the show. It's just going to be an awesome, awesome month of July. Looking forward to it. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for another great episode. We'll see you next week. Anyway, peace in the Middle East. Free Tibet and God save the king. Maybe I'll wear my new hat next time. I think y'all saw I got a new King Chucky hat. But anyway, I'll see you guys. Thank you. Peace.
Happy Canada Day.